Why do so many people feel like the world is getting worse? Every day, what we hear seems to be bad news. An accident here today, a conflict there tomorrow. Over time, it starts to feel like the whole world is slowly falling apart. But here's the strange part. People in nearly every era have felt exactly the same way. If the world had really been getting worse this whole time, humanity would have collapsed long ago. The ancient Chinese noticed this too, and they left behind a saying: good news never leaves the house. Bad news travels 1,000 miles. Imagine the same year, seen from two different places. The reports sent to the capital speak of good harvests, peaceful borders, a settled people. But in the tea houses, people are talking about whose family was struck by disaster, where bandits had appeared, which roads were no longer safe. Nothing happened today was never a popular topic at the tea house. The emperor heard about peace. The common people talked about misfortune. They weren't looking at the same kingdom at all. Officials reporting upward learned over time to share good news and bury bad news. Among ordinary people, peace and quiet was never news. Only trouble spread. One side kept polishing the picture. The other side kept amplifying the cracks. And so the same world, in different people's eyes, began to look less and less like the same world. But the real danger wasn't even this. In the final years of the Ming dynasty, Emperor Chongzhen reviewed memorials every single day. He was more diligent than anyone in the empire, and he saw more reports than anyone else. But every one of those memorials had already been polished and filtered by the officials who wrote them. What Chongzhen saw was an empire dressed up layer after layer. He made his decisions, issued his orders based on those reports. What he didn't know was that he was using an unreal world to respond to a very real crisis. Why does good news fail to travel, while bad news spreads so fast? A merchant becomes wealthy, and the person happiest about it is the merchant himself. That kind of news rarely travels much further. But if a region is struck by famine, one person who hears about it tells 10 others. Those 10 tell even more. Good news grows quieter and quieter. Bad news grows louder and louder. What actually changes our judgment isn't false information. It's true information. Every time it passes through another person, it shifts just a little. By the time it reaches us, it's no longer what it originally was. The ancient Chinese captured all of this in 10 characters. Good news never leaves the house. Bad news travels 1,000 miles. So let's return to the question we started with. Why do people in nearly every era feel like the world is getting worse? It's not because the world is actually getting worse. It's because the world we see was never evenly distributed in the first place. The parts that keep getting amplified are far more likely to reach our eyes. The parts that quietly disappear, almost no one ever sees. Chongzhen was exactly like this. The more reports he saw, the further he drifted from the truth. Because those reports had already been filtered before they ever reached him. Today, we receive more information every day than any era in history. But the great illusion of the information age lies exactly here. We easily mistake the quantity of information for closeness to the truth. 1,000 years ago, the ancient Chinese already warned us. Good news never leaves the house. Bad news travels 1,000 miles. What they were warning us about was never how to tell truth from falsehood. It was this: never mistake the part of the world you can see for the whole of it, because the world you see is only ever a single slice of the world that actually exists.